it's a big day.
Is it scary?
Give me another shot.
To infinity and beyond. The Force will be with you.
Always.
Assemble.
Hey, welcome back to Film Hooligans. 2019, Jason, was a polarizing year, one of those top-heavy film years ever. But there was some hidden gems in here.
It was not that tough to put together a top 10. That's what I'll say.
Yeah,
Like there was a lot, but like it wasn't that difficult, to make these cuts. So 2019 I felt was a pretty weak year, and I think the Oscars will reflect that.
I think that it was a deceiving year because you had films come out from the giants like Scorsese, Tarantino. Soderbergh had 2 films, but it wasn't...
Soderbergh had 2 films and no one gave a shit about either one.
Right.
I thought Laundromat was probably the most underrated movie of 2019.
Okay, that's fair. And I would say that High Flying Bird was up there, but it definitely didn't warrant a top 10. I mean,
High Flying Bird's not going to crack my top. High Flying Bird was a top 25 movie of the year, but like, so what?
Sure.
So were 4 other movies, so.
It was the best movie this year made on an iPhone, for sure.
And that's not being that generous.
Right.
So, so we will preface this whole list by the fact that, like, look, we're Western guys. We didn't get to any film festivals. We didn't see a lot of the stuff, that some of the international film festivals saw. So this is going to be heavily like, hey, what came out in the American market this year? And,
sure.
That's our focus. And that was what we had the ability to see. So we're basing our ratings on the movies that were readily available to us. I want to mention a couple like foreign movies that did really well. Like An Elephant Sitting Still was a 4-hour movie, and the 29-year-old filmmaker Hu Bo made the movie. The movie did very well at the film festivals, despite being 4 hours long, and then he committed suicide. So, like, obviously, An Elephant Sitting Still is a movie I would have liked to have seen, but I couldn't find it anywhere. So, like, our takes are going to be heavily influenced by the fact that some of these movies that did very well at festivals were not readily available for us to watch.
Yeah, and we're going to get into some honorable mentions as well. So before we do that, I just want to say cheers to the new year. Whether you liked this year cinematically or not in 2019, I hope you enjoy our list.
If you didn't, you're in good company, because I didn't. But hey, Prost.
Yes, a 10-year Ottoman Tawny Port is going to accompany me on this list.
I'm drinking the Founders Frangelic Brown, which is a brown ale brewed with hazelnut and coffee. So this is not quite the bourbon barrel aged I'm used to on this episode, on this cast from Founders, but this is still a very formidable brew, and I'm glad to be getting into it with you.
Absolutely. Not only major directors came out with some,
but December was really packed. Like we're around October, like, hey, we should do a year-end thing, but like December just hammered us.
Mm-hmm.
Richard Jewell, Knives Out, Uncut Gems, Bombshell, Queen and Slim, A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, Ford versus Ferrari, 21 Bridges. Like even the new Maleficent and the new Star Wars and the new Frozen and Cats, which was my favorite movie of 2019. They all came out in December. And 1917, at the time of recording,
Sure.
not even out yet.
Right. It was impossible. They jam-packed December so much.
It's an Oscar buzz thing, and it's whatever. And you have studios like A24 that just don't have the money. You know, A24 only submitted Moonlight for consideration for Oscars because they didn't have enough money to do a campaign for Florida Project. What I would argue was a better movie as well. So you have smaller studios like A24, which made, by my estimation, 75% of the good movies in 2019 were made by A24.
No question.
They just didn't have the money to do Oscar campaigns for all of them. So that's why they buried Uncut Gems in December. You know, that's why they shot their wad with Midsummer very early when nobody would remember it when Oscar season came around. They just don't have the money to be strategic. And that's a shame because as much as people like Martin Scorsese are bitching that every movie's a Marvel movie, A24 just is putting out all the good movies in cinema and just no one's going to see them. And what can you do?
Yeah, and it was huge movies too. I mean, we had a Toy Story, we had all the Disney live action, like The Lion King. We had
we had like 3 good Marvel movies.
Huge conclusions to big sagas too. You mentioned. Oh yeah,
before. The last Star Wars movie, the last Marvel Phase 3 movie, which was Endgame. You know, you had what everyone thought was the last Spider-Man movie on the basis of Disney taking over and saying, no more Spider-Man. You know, Far From Home, one of my favorite Spider-Man movies ever. And this is a guy who used a senior skip day in high school to go see Spider-Man in 2002 3 times the day that it opened. Perfect. So, yeah. I was an honor roll student. I'm like, I'm going to go visit a college. And they're like, what college? I'm like, I'm going to go see Spider-Man 3 times. And I'm an honor roll student. You can't stop me. So, you know, I was very jazzed for another Spider-Man movie. I got to take my daughter to it. She was jazzed. You know, there's just Frozen 2 came out. There's Toy Story 4. There's a lot of sagas that felt like they were concluding. Cats, that's the last thing anyone will ever do with Cats again.
Ever.
Ever. Hopefully.
Any Cats.
Right?
Yeah.
Any, right? All Cats are canceled. House Cats, you're done after that.
I've already sold mine on the black market. Yeah. It's just, but
if I could take a 30-second aside about Cats, funniest movie of the year. You know, Blockers was okay, but Cats way funnier.
I heard it's going to be one of those new stoner movies. I heard it's on par with like Half Baked and movies like that, or like Friday, where it's going to be one of those cult following stoner movies.
But the cult following stoner movies were made for stoners on purpose. Half Baked 100% was made for stoners.
Right.
Cats was not made for stoners, but it's just like an acid trip on celluloid. Like it's just the perfect.
The mescaline junkies needed their movie, and they finally got it in 2019.
Yeah, nobody's making movies for people who do mescaline, and that's unfortunate. It's like, oh, sorry, Spies in Disguise were for people who do ketamine. They're like, where will people care about the mescaline junkies? You got $37 a hit. Go make your own movie.
They built in the tracers because, you know, when you see Cats on mescaline, then the effects line up. So thank God for that.
It's Skimbleshanks' song. That's when the fucking acid hits.
Let's jump right into it. So with our own personal top 10 lists, which I can't show you yet, but we will show you towards the end, we did have 2 that didn't quite make the cut. These 2 movies made the cut on our own personal list, but on the consensus list, they didn't have the numbers. And I guess I'll roll mine out first. I had Crawl at number 10, and that's Alexandre Aja, and I'm sorry if I'm saying that wrong. And yes, I could hear like it's a audible eye roll. You know, everyone's eyes are hitting the back of their skulls so loud right now that I just said that a movie about gators made my top 10. But you know what?
Gators!
This was such a fun movie. It was tension-filled. It was, the effects were really elevated for what this thing could have been and should have been. And seeing Barry Pepper, I mean, It had some really good tension, had some really good effects. I really liked Crawl. It didn't quite make the list, but Jason, what was your honorable mention?
My honorable mention was Jojo Rabbit, which was actually a good movie. You know, if I'd put Jojo Rabbit higher on my list just to game things, it probably would have made the top 10 because, you know, Jojo Rabbit was fine. It was like if Wes Anderson had directed Schindler's List is how I would describe Jojo Rabbit. Like, it was very, very, very bitingly satirical, and it was basically a Wes Anderson movie. Taika Waititi just goes for it, right? Like, is there anything he's done that everyone's like, wow, that was shit categorically? Like, no. I mean, he did the best Thor movie. Yeah. He did What We Do in Shadows, which was probably my top 15 or 20 of the decade.
Sure.
What We Do in Shadows.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you know, Waititi, he's just so funny. And he played Hitler very hilariously. Like, how do you do Hitler hilariously that's not mean-spirited? Because, you know, like 4chan can make a funny Hitler movie where he's just like, I killed all the feminists. But, like, Jojo Rabbit was actually just really bitingly satirical. And I don't have a single Sam Rockwell movie in our reconciled top 10, which, like, it's too bad.
That feels bad. Yeah.
Well, what did he do this year? He did Richard Jewell, which is just like Clint Eastwood, who likes to bark at empty chairs, pretending that the right hasn't sucked up to the FBI the whole decade. Like, I don't know, man.
Right.
Like, so, I mean, Rockwell does good movies, but, like, I'm sorry, Jojo Rabbit just didn't make it. You know, it's my Crawl. I didn't put it high enough on my list, knowing that John wouldn't agree. So what we did to reconcile our top 10 was we both ranked our top 10 movies, and then we gave them a point value based on their spot on the list. So my number 1 movie was 10 points, my number 2, 9 points, etc. Okay? And John's the same way. So what we did was we averaged the scores. So we both had our number 1 movie was worth 10 points. So if we had the same movie at number 1, that was an average of 10 because we both give it 10. You divide that by 2, it got a 10. So Jojo Rabbit and Crawl were both low enough that it got 2 points average on the basis of just like one person not agreeing, and they didn't make the list. But the rest of our movies were at least 2 points.
Yeah,
on the average. So we'll show you both of our lists, and then we'll show you the average list, and, you know, the scores of the average score of the movies. So we figured, like, one person really liking a movie, it might not make the top 10 on the basis of the other person not including it at all. Mm-hmm. So we didn't talk about this before. We just compiled our lists in secret, and then we shared them today. I did the averages, and our top 10 is the 10 best scores out of average out of all the movies that we ranked.
And just before we move on from Jojo Rabbit, it probably would have been higher on the list. We can't see all the movies, especially with this show proper. Like, we're constantly picking a filmmaker and going through movies from decades ago and all that. So, you know, there's a finite time in a year to see all these movies. Like you said, something like in 1917 probably would have cracked the top 10. We
literally 1917 isn't out near me yet.
Right.
Like, we could have recorded this episode in 2020, I guess, but, like, look, it's like there are 3 days left in the year and I haven't had a chance to see it, and that's not my fault. Get off my back.
Stop putting everything in December. Like, spread it out just a little bit. So now we're going to go right into the list. Jason, you want to kick off number 10?
Number 10 was a movie that we both ranked somewhat low, just on the basis of, like, I felt like the ending wasn't great. And that was the Shia LaBeouf movie, The Peanut Butter Falcon.
There's sheep in this world, and there are wolves in this world. And I know that you two boys are just two weary travelers who lost your way. So, we're gonna clean you up right with a baptism.
I'm more of a baptism by fire type.
Okay.
Talk about a year for Shia LaBeouf. Another movie that we didn't get to see was Honey Boy.
Well, Honey Boy wouldn't have made my top 10. Personally, felt a little bit too self-congratulatory. It was sort of like, basically in Honey Boy, he played his own father and he bullied a young actor who was meant to play him. It was a little bit too, oh, my frick, I'm weird. I did all the weird stuff when I said I wasn't famous and got arrested a lot because my dad pushed me too hard to be in Disney movies. I don't know, man. I felt Honey Boy was a little bit too masturbatory, but sure. Peanut Butter Falcon, like, he legitimately made just a feel-good movie that just did not have an ending. The movie lacked an ending, and I felt like that hurt it. I would have put it higher because I liked the ride until the end. You could be Thomas Hayden Church in a movie that isn't Spider-Man 3, and I'm sure. Like, I'm in, right? Like, the guy was in Sideways, which I think is a perfect movie.
Yes.
I don't think too many movies are perfect. I think Sideways is perfect. So you give me a premise like Peter Butter Falcon, I'm in, but it just suffered from not having an ending.
I liked it. I liked it from start to finish, and I thought the ending was fine. It did feel a little... okay, and now roll credits, and then we're done. But I think that we had some really good performances from Shia LaBeouf, Dakota Johnson, and the newcomer, the boy, Zach Gottenson. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was
but
just...
you didn't rank it that much higher than me. You had it 8th on your list. I had it 10th. That's
Correct.
why it finished 10th.
Yeah.
Just because you liked it a little bit more than me, but not that much.
But what a hell of a debut from Tyler Nilson and Michael Schwartz. This was a dual directing effort. I think,
yeah.
and they wrote it. I think it was. I mean, that shows some gumption to. I mean, it's kind of a touchy subject matter, mental health and all that, and just kind of jump in that with kind of a loose cannon that is Shia LaBeouf. I think that they did a good job, and I think that's why it kind of warrants. And I mean, the cinematography on this, it had some really fantastic shots. It's some really great.
This was a really pretty movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It was like Huck Finn, right? I mean, it was...
yeah, I mean, a little bit. And, like, if you look at someone like Tyler Nilson,
mm-hmm.
like, his directing credits before this are, like, he's done a couple of documentary shorts. This is his first feature.
Which is, I mean, and we have reviewed some first features on this channel before, and let me tell you, this was pretty great. So I'm glad that it made the list. Am I surprised that it's at number 10, barely scraping in? No, but it's definitely
no, because you had it at 8, I had it at 10. It's like, it's just whatever. The movie didn't have an ending. If it had an ending that was satisfactory, it might have been a little bit better. Also, Dakota Johnson cannot act. I have been on record as saying that acting is the easiest job on the planet. The fact that Dakota Johnson can't do it is baffling, because, like, anyone could do it. Eminem can act. Why can't Dakota Johnson?
Kevin Garnett.
Kevin Garnett is a better actor than Dakota Johnson. Why is she famous? But what are you going to do?
I differ a little bit on that. I liked her in Suspiria, but that's fine.
On the basis of, like, Peanut Butter Falcon being real low on both of our lists, it comes in at 10. Not a surprise. Real sweet movie. Liked it a lot. It was just a sweet movie. What are you gonna do?
So talk about transition from sweet to sour, because this is where the gloves come off. The next film, number 9, is the one that I brought over from my list. I put it so high up at number 6, and it did not
that
make
it actually
Jason's
made
list.
the top 10. It was not on my top 10 list at all. Quentin Tarantino's worst film to date, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
In this town, that can all change like that.
Hey! You're Rick fucking Dalton. Don't you forget it.
Now, people are talking about this, about how it's getting all this Oscar buzz, about, oh, it's Brad Pitt's best performance. This was on John's list. This was his number 6, and it was my number not on the list, and that's why it finished with 2.5 points average. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I thought was a piece of trash, and when I expressed that opinion online, people suggested that perhaps I did not get the movie. I got the movie. So the entire point of De Niro being in the movie was to explain to Leonardo DiCaprio's character the fact that someone exists in the movie to get their ass kicked to make the hero look better. Mm-hmm. And later on, that was foreshadowing inexplicably Brad Pitt's character beating the shit out of Bruce Lee, and like the real life Bruce Lee. But it's fine, because that speech from De Niro about how Bruce Lee wasn't really Bruce Lee. He was just someone who existed in the movie to show how tough Brad Pitt's character was. So when he dispensed of the people who killed Sharon Tate later, it made sense, because he's just a freaking Kendra badass who loves throwing fists around and beating up Bruce Lee. Get the fuck out of here. I hated this movie so much.
All right. So
I wanted to like it. I wanted so badly to, because look, I'm a fucking Tarantino apologist.
Sure.
He's a weird foot fetishist who says the N-word all the time, and everyone's like, "Oh, how do you like him?" I will apologize for him so much, but this movie was just a bridge too far. Couldn't get into it. Didn't like it. John, tell me, what about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood had enough merit that you put it as your number 6?
Well, this was the footiest foot fetish film of all time, because we had dirty feet, we had girl feet, guy feet, feet in the... we had Sharon Tate feet. It was all about the feet in this film. But that's not what did it for me, because I personally think feet are gross, but I don't kink shame. I think that this was... okay, so first off, I don't think that this is one of Tarantino's best. I think that it's better than some, but I liken it to a Inglourious Basterds, where I like this kind of going back and rewriting history type deal, and I think that this was just a ton of fun, where it was characters that you know, and it's like, I sometimes like doing that. It's just like, or you see like a real movie like a Schindler's List, and you're just like, what would happen? I know it's not correct, like historically correct, but what would happen if this and X, Y, and Z happen? And Tarantino's starting to do that. It's these weird choose your own adventures, and I think I just thought it was great. I thought
that wasn't my problem, because he did that in Inglourious Basterds.
Yeah.
He did that like, what if we fucking actually murdered Hitler? And Inglourious Basterds, actually my favorite Quentin Tarantino movie out of all of them.
So that's why I don't understand why this one's so low for you, because it is so... It feels like a blood relative, and just beyond being another Tarantino film, but it feels so connected to that, that I had a blast with this.
Well, it was like 45 minutes too long, Well, I thought it was just a little bit douchey, and I thought the only good character in the movie was Trudy Frazier, played by Julia Butters, the 10-year-old who was acting on
that. Was great. Yeah.
She was a revelation, I thought, and she's acted before, but like, she was great.
Yeah.
And to be in a movie with Luke Perry and Al Pacino and DiCaprio and Brad Pitt, and the fact that I felt like she was the only thing I cared about. I love Timothy Olyphant, for Christ's sake.
Right. Yeah.
I didn't like the movie, and I wanted to. So the fact that I didn't like it and wanted to means I can't put it in my top 10 of the year.
No.
Which, as much as it wasn't that stacked, was a year where there were 10 movies I actually liked. So, like, argue with us in the comments of this video all you want, but like, John put it relatively high, and I could not, in good conscience, rank this.
My last word on it is Quentin Tarantino movies, there's a finite amount left, or just original filmmakers in general. Thank God there's like your Bong Joon-ho's coming out, and there's this new renaissance of new filmmakers that have original voices and stories. But someone as indulgent as Quentin Tarantino, just making you sit through an actual scene of a Western, and that goes on for like 30 minutes, and the punchline is that Leo forgets his lines, is just like, we're not going to see that anymore. Like, who gets to do that shit? So I just feel like even if it's like on the lower end of the spectrum for Tarantino movies, they should be just like celebrated and just like held in just such high esteem, because I feel like, going forward, this type of movie isn't going to happen anymore. And so that in itself, I just love the the devil may care attitude of his filmmaking style, and it was very overindulgent, and I loved it.
But it was overindulgent to the extent that like he can just do what he wants and make a film of dubious quality, but the fact that his name is Quentin Tarantino means he'll be in the Oscar discussion, and I don't think this film warranted it. I think this is one of his worst. Okay, so I'm a little bit weird. I think that Reservoir Dogs was better than Pulp Fiction.
I agree. I 100% agree with that.
Well, okay, that's why we're friends. But like, not too many people agree with that. So like, you start from a basic premise of like everybody thinks that his most masturbatory films are his best. On the basis of just not enjoying this movie when I saw it and really desperately wanting to, I think we spent too much time on this movie. Let's talk about one that I ranked and you didn't, and that's the only reason it made the top 10, which was the Banderas Penelope Cruz movie, Pain and Glory.
No has sido un buen hijo, hijo mío.
¿No?
No.
¿Qué haces aquí? Tengo que hablar contigo.
32 años me ha costado reconciliarme con esta película.
Si no escribes ni ruedas, ¿qué vas a hacer?
Vivir, supongo. Buen viaje.
Which was nominated for 2 Golden Globes and, had a ton of other nominations. It was nominated for the ACTA International Award for Best Lead Actor. At Cannes Film Festival, it won Best Actor, Best Soundtrack. It was nominated for the Palme d'Or, and it was nominated for the Queer Palm. So this movie really kind of cleaned up at the awards, and it just wasn't really available in the U.S. And let's just say I saw it extra legally. But this was a movie that made a ton of film critics top 10s, and I had to see it. So Pain and Glory is the story of a film director, and he sort of just reflects on his life, I guess. It's just sort of, I don't want to give too much away. I don't want to spoil too much, but this is one of Banderas's best performances, and this is a guy I'm not super impressed with.
Sure.
So to say that Banderas is good in this movie, Penelope Cruz sucks, and she's good in this movie. So it's something that I really think people should see. And I truly felt it was one of the top 10 of the year. This is super hard for people in North America to see, and it's worth it. And I feel like this is something that's going to just randomly end up on Netflix or Hulu pretty soon. And you're going to want to see this. And John, did you even see this movie?
No, and that's what I was going to say. Again, this was probably one that was going to be probably maybe higher on the list if I would have saw it. I was looking forward to this one.
You know what? I
didn't get a chance.
I mean, on my list, I ranked Pain and Glory number 4, which was super high, but I really felt it. So if you'd rank this as number 6 or 7, this would have been number 5 on the list overall. So, you know what? This is just something that was just super specific to me having liked it, and just it being really difficult to see. So, that's fine with me. These last 2 movies are ones we did not agree on, but basically after this, there was basically a real consensus. So we're getting out of the movies where only one of us ranked it and into the stuff that we all liked.
And this is funny because we mathematically, these next 2 movies, we had them both on our list, but we had them in the exact opposite spots.
Yeah, one at 5th, one at 9th, and then the other one at 9th and 5th.
Yeah.
So they averaged out to being 4.5 points each, which is great for a tie at 6th place. It doesn't matter which one we do; they're both tied at 6th. And our tiebreakers failed too, because one had 9th and one at 5th, one at 5th, one at 9th. So let's just go with Booksmart.
Yeah.
The Olivia Wilde, basically
debut.
Her take. Yeah, well, her directorial debut, sure.
Picture this, I'm a bag of dicks, put me to your lips.
Hand sanitizer, check. Chapstick, check. Mace, listen, it is very important that you keep the safety.
the fuck is this?
You asked the question!
Oh my god.
What more can I say?
Well, that seems excessive. Shotgun. Just kidding. I don't have one.
Superbad.
Superbad. Yeah, it was her Superbad. But with two female leads, I really, really liked this movie. I thought it was very funny. I like the premise that nobody talked about what colleges they got into. And there was a scene, I don't want to spoil too much, but these two girls basically just were super nerds, and they're like, oh, we're being super nerds, and one of them got into an Ivy League school. And they were talking in the bathroom about like, yeah, everybody else partied and they just fucked off, but we were super serious about our studies and we got an Ivy League school. And then everybody else in the bathroom's like, I got into an Ivy League school too, you know? And I partied my ass off, and I got it. And one of the guys is like, well, I didn't get into an Ivy League school, but I'm going to work for Google next year. That's pretty good, right? And then these two girls were completely devastated. I really loved that take of like, oh, well, we did everything we were supposed to, didn't have any fun, but we're going to pay off. And then everybody who fucked off a little bit in high school got the, went to the same schools they're going to, I thought was just really funny as a premise for them needing their one last party of high school, because like nobody liked them because they were bummers, but all the people who partied had the same success. So now they're like desperate to have a party situation. I really thought that was such a good take on scholasticism and pushing yourself and measuring yourself against other people. But at the same time, thinking the nerdy kids thinking they're better than the kids who fucked off, but like having it proven to them that like being a well-balanced person matters too. I love that premise. It was just super bad, but better, I thought. Personally,
I 100% concur with Superbad, but better. And it's so funny too, because I'm sitting there just like, man, you even have the Michael Cera and the Jonah Hill, and it turns out that Benny Feldstein is freaking Jonah Hill's sister, and I'm like, oh my god, it's like the real sister of Jonah Hill, and it was just perfect. But you have your Animal House, you have your American Pie, you have your Superbad. This is the next.
Don't forget Porky's, man.
Yeah,
Porky's
exactly.
Just between Animal House and American Pie, and that was every like 10 years you just get that movie, and like if you're a little older, like I guess American Pie was my movie, and then people a little bit younger, maybe Superbad was their movie. But like if you were like a Zennial right now, Generation Z, like this could be your Superbad. And I thought that, for Olivia Wilde's directorial debut, I thought this was fantastic. And
I think this was the most naturally funny of all the ones that we mentioned too. I think that Superbad is great because it's so riffy and it's so like dick and fart joke, but this was so real. This was real conversations between friends, and even though they were two female leads instead of in Superbad, I connected with this way more. I just thought it was like, everything
and,
was
we're gonna
real.
sound like just these SJW tards love the lady movie because they feel like they have to, but like I felt like this was a better Superbad. And there was some stuff that came up that I can't relate to at all. I never had my first lesbian experience.
Right.
On drugs. I felt like
we've tried. Yeah.
Yeah. You know how many times I've tried to have a lesbian experience? It was effective.
And $6 million budget, making $24 million, and you could stream it on Hulu. Like, that's what I'm talking about. Like, this thing like cleaned up at the box office. I can't wait to see what Olivia Wilde does next. I was the one that had this a little bit higher than Jay. I had it at number 5. I think you had it at number.
Yeah, he had this number 5. I had this number 9. But like, it's fine. I liked it, and like I don't think it's super worth it to see a ton of comedies on the big screen.
Sure.
I tend to think you red box movies like Blockers.
Right.
But also, I kind of think we're getting out of the era where they're making really generic comedies, like just all the Will Ferrell stuff. Because like man, I didn't see Sherlock Holmes, certainly. But like, I felt like with Blockers and Game Night and, this and stuff like,
yeah,
I felt like they're starting to make pretty decent comedies like that. Like they weren't making for the last 10 years. Because if you don't like Judd Apatow, you're totally fucked at the box office. There's nothing good for you. And that's all there is to it. So I felt like this was just sort of emblematic of the fact that like they're gonna start making pretty decent comedies pretty soon. So I think we should move on to the other tied for sixth place movie, which was Midsummer.
That's why you look so guilty right now, because you know.
We only do this every 90 years. I was most excited for you to come.
Now, Midsummer was a movie John ranked 9th and I ranked 5th. So, I'm the reason that this was, tied in the middle. I thought as much as Midsummer was not as good as Hereditary, it wasn't, the best for a sophomore effort from Ari Aster. I thought Midsummer was very affecting, and I also felt like this was the best portrayal on screen I've ever seen of being high on mushrooms.
Yes, thank you for saying. I swear to God, I was going to say the exact same
because
point.
So many movies like, I'm high on mushrooms, and then you see some crazy shit that's not there. Mushrooms, LSD, a lot of hallucinogens just make things wavy. And you look at something and it's a little wavy.
Enhance, yeah.
And colors look a little brighter. And just that, like, for whatever reason, I really appreciated how the fact that, like, it was the best representation of a drug trip on film that I've seen.
Oh,
you're not going to see some shit that isn't there necessarily. You might look at your foot and see some grass and be like, oh, there's grass on my foot. But mostly you're just going to see shit look wavy, and that's fun and that's cool. But at the same time, you're not going to see a fucking building turn into a panther and attack you on like one mushroom or a little bit of mushroom tea. So like I felt like this was the best drug trip movie, that I've seen in a while.
And that's why it was effective.
Yeah. But like everything else that happened that was crazy wasn't a result of the drugs they took.
Right.
And Midsummer was just, it was just a crazy movie. And if you want to see crazy shit happen, that's the kind of movie to go to. And Hereditary was a crazy ass movie too, and Ari Aster knows what he's doing. That's why I had this so high on my list, because it was so enormously affecting to me having seen it. And I actually watched it a second time just to properly rate it, because I saw it so early in the year. Mm-hmm. And I'm glad I gave it a second viewing, because even though I knew it was going to happen, I caught a lot of shit. So
I think that Hereditary is probably the better of the film, and there are some sequences that kind of feel like a do-over again. Like we're seeing some of the same elements. So I would like to see whatever Ari Aster comes up with next kind of differentiate from the other two, because they kind of hit on the same notes. But just the fact that how beautiful this film is. This film, you are seeing some horrifying shit, and it is gorgeously shot, and it's so like grounded and everything, and like they're constantly on a hallucinogen trip. So
they kept giving them substances over and over, like, oh, this is just some tea to enhance your dancing experience,
to make sure that you're okay with these elderly people throwing themselves off a cliff.
Watching you in a gang. I saw William Jackson Harper. I'm like, I wonder if he's going to be cheaty in this movie. No, I'm just kidding. He's not going to be cheaty in this movie. He's like, I'm going to Sweden to write my thesis. I'm like, oh shit, he's cheating.
Yeah, it was.
So I got a kick out of that too. That like William Jackson Harper, way more fuckable without glasses. Who knew?
Who knew?
Dude's super hot without glasses.
The characters were kind of wonky and the story was kind of thin, but just the fact that it was just so gorgeously shot, like completely brought it up there for me. But let's move on to our next one. We are at number 5 now.
This was a little bit more consensus on this one.
This is a heavy hitter.
I had it ranked 8th, and you had it ranked 3rd. So that's not quite consensus. That's a pretty big split.
That's a big split.
I didn't like this movie nearly as much as you did. The movie streaming on Netflix now is Marriage Story, starring Adam Driver and Scarlett Johansson.
It's not as simple as not being in love anymore.
Eventually, it'll be the two of you having to figure this out. Together.
If we start from a place of reasonable and they start from a place of crazy, when we settle, we'll be somewhere between reasonable and crazy.
Black Widow and Kylo Ren.
Kramer versus Kramer. I, for whatever reason, thought this movie was a little bit Oscar bait and kind of overrated. But you liked it a lot more than I did. And it was directed and written by Noah Baumbach, who is the director of such movies as Francis Ha?
Squid and the Whale.
Oh, Squid and the Whale, too. Yeah, that was legit a good movie. But, I mean, that was 15 years ago also.
And he helped write, like, most of Wes Anderson's movies. I think that, yes, it did seem very Oscar baity, but it earned it, man.
I mean, Mr. Fox and Meyerowitz stories and, Life Aquatic. So, like, I like Noah Baumbach, but at the same time, like, I felt like I was turned off by the degree to people were like, wow, Scarlett Johansson and Adam Driver are such good actors. I'm like, that was scripted. And they're like, look at this scene. This is clearly improv. I'm like, that's scripted. And then they're like, well, look at this. And then people put, nope, this is all scripted. It was good writing, and good writing is good, but like pretending that Scarlett Johansson can act, I think is a little bit too much for me. And Adam Driver going on Fresh Air, and Terry Gross would be like, wow, you did a good job acting. He's like, I'm very uncomfortable. I need to leave the interview. Fuck off, Adam Driver. You have the easiest job. So maybe all that contributed to me like ranking this lower than maybe I should have, but like, Jesus, come on. It's an easy job. You go to work and someone's like, okay, in this scene, you're going to say this exact thing like you're mad. And then they said that and they're like, wow, such passion. It's like, fuck off. What an easy job.
Well, this was theater.
They did it.
This was theater 100%. This is
yeah. It really felt like this was written for the stage for sure.
And it was, and that's why it works. So that's why it was kind of cheaty that way, where they're just like, oh, they're theater people, so that's why they're so over the top with emotions but it just worked for me. I think that the dialogue was delivered perfectly. It was on point. It was written so well. If this was any other year where the other two movies that I had ranked higher came out, I think this would have been my number one.
Jesus,
it's my. I like people talking in rooms.
I can't. I know. You like people talking. I can't imagine how bad a year would have to be for this to be my number one. Like after we're in a nuclear war and North Korea bombs us, and there's only one movie. Everybody else is doing like puppet shows in the irradiated rubble, and then like one person like distributes VHS tapes by horse. Like that would be the number one movie, perhaps. Like I don't know.
This had the full spectrum of emotions. I was crying. I can't laughing.
Shit on it too much. Like I put this in my top 10. Like this made the list because I put it at my number 8, but like if this had been a better year, it wouldn't have made my top 10. So if you're like, this is a worse year, it would have been my number 1. If this had been a better year, it wouldn't have made my top 10. So that's like how little consensus there is. But hey, man, when you average 8 and 3, it comes out to 5.5. So that's where it ended up on our list.
Absolutely love this movie. All right, let's go to number 4, where this is
a movie I wish there had been more consensus on this one too, which was a movie you ranked 7th, I ranked 2nd.
Yes.
Rian Johnson's Knives Out.
I have eliminated no suspects.
I'm gonna live.
It's a twisted web. We are not finished untangling it, not yet.
What is this? CSI KFC?
He can direct a good film.
He can always. Last Jedi was a good. Ooh,
I know.
You said that to rile me.
Yeah, of course.
How can Rian Johnson's career ever possibly rebound from the $500 million Last Jedi? This is a movie I went and saw in theaters, and I texted John the second it ended. I didn't text my wife, be like, how are our kids? Is everyone fine? I didn't text my dad, be like, hey, Dad, we still on for Christmas? I texted John. He was the first person I messaged after I saw this movie, and I said, this may be my number one movie of the year. And ultimately, it didn't. It was not my number one. It was my number two. But Knives Out, Tour de Force, fantastic movie.
He was all over this one. I thought it was a ton of fun. It was a thrill ride. It was so well acted. It was so well directed. I was taken aback by it. It was everything that I wanted. It outclued Clue. It was a ton of fun. Character acting. I mean, you say that acting is an easy thing, but you had normal people cast against their type, and I think they nailed it. Like Daniel Craig.
You also had somebody who's never acted before, like, act fine. Beside Daniel Craig and Chris Evans and, Jamie Lee fucking Curtis, people who've just done this for 30 years. You had someone who basically never acted before do fine.
Oh, God, yeah, she was great. And she carried it. And she led the entire thing.
Was Ana de Armas.
Yeah.
Played Marta.
She was great. She's the you'll remember her from Blade Runner 2049.
Yeah, she was Joy in that.
Yeah, and she was just incredible. Like everyone from start to finish, this was a ton of fun. The only reason I don't think I rated it as high as you did is because I can't see the rewatchability of this film is not there.
Okay. Yeah, because it's a whodunit.
Exactly.
And whodunit.
They need to change it, like whodunit every time you watch
Big
it.
Lebowski Big Lebowski was a whodunit, and I'll never not watch that again. So I get that, but if I have immediate plans to rewatch Knives Out again, no, maybe not till like 2021.
Sure.
So that's a good point. This is not as rewatchable as something like Pain and Glory or To You, Once Upon a Time. I guess there were some twists, but at the same time, I think our number one had some twists that were hidden that detract from its rewatchability. And we both agreed on the number one movie. So let's not assign too much to, we know how it ends, so let's not watch it again.
No.
So as much as I agree with you saying that, I don't think that's everything.
This felt like, going home from a really fun night of a poker night or a D&D night or something. And you're just like, God, that was awesome how that particular thing happened. And then
you had to be there.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
So I'm glad it exists. I think Rian Johnson just absolutely nailed it. And this was his big middle finger back. I wish someone like a Josh Trank could do something like that after Fan 4 Stick. But it was great. I'm not saying it was a lot of fun. But it's just, it served its purpose. And then I just felt like, oh, okay, that was great. And I don't ever need to see this again. So now we're in the nitty gritty, my friend. We're in the top three.
We're in the, yep. And there's a little bit more consensus here. To get into the top three, these movies had to be in our top five. And, it's funny you say that. This was my number 6. Your number 2.
Number 2.
David Eggers' The Lighthouse.
What's a timberman want with being a wickie?
Just looking to earn a living, just like any man. Starting new.
On the run. Keeping secrets, are you?
No, sir.
Why don't you spill your beans?
Hark how I want you to be consumed with black brine water till your innards turn to, I don't know, man.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm gonna memorize that whole speech
drunkenly, or you'll only be able to recite.
I'm
it
not
when you're
drunk
3
enough.
sheets.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's that state despondent learning
when you're drinking kerosene oil and honey.
Yeah,
like,
right.
ugh.
Well, all the water in the the cistern needs some lime in it. I don't know what the lighthouse was. It was heavily metaphorical. It was black and white. Pattinson, good fucking choice. You know, that guy just picks good roles. I don't think that acting is that hard, but I think that picking the right roles is hard. Mm-hmm. And Robert Pattinson's a guy that's like, oh, he's just Edward, blah, blah, blah. But like everything he's done since Twilight, you know, from Cosmopolis to, you know, to this, you know, I think he's done nothing but just pick really good roles and roles that he can nail. And acting, how do you act across from Willem Dafoe, who just uses those mangled teeth to just chew the scenery? The fact that you can even hold your own in a movie with Willem goddamn Dafoe it's insane.
There's never too far for Willem Dafoe. There's never that line.
No, exactly. There's never like, hey, could you tone it back? They're like, that's good, but could you do like 10% more than I think we got it? The guy is a lunatic. So like acting across from a lunatic, yeah, it's tough. You know, you got to really bring it. So good for Pattinson. I think, you know, he did a really good job. And if I'd understood what I'd seen on film a little bit more, I might have ranked this higher. But like, look, I feel like he knew exactly what he was doing when he took this role, and I felt like he executed. And this movie was very affecting.
This was, I mean, I got the tones of like Prometheus and all that, where and it was the other Poseidon's son. I can't think of the name right now, but it's again people talking in rooms. It was terrifying. It felt very Greek mythology. There's so many layers to this damn movie. It felt like Eraserhead. It was just the aspect ratios all you know, jumbled up into that 1.191 kind of like a ghost story. I swear, you put anything in that damn aspect ratio, and I'm going to rate it the best thing ever.
It felt Lynchian, for sure.
Yes.
Because I got that same... We didn't talk about this, you know... I mean, we talked about this, but before we talked about this, I got a real Lynchian vibe from this, and the black and white helped a ton. But the fact that, like, you know, the lighthouse that Pattinson's character was forbade to go into... And the fact that he got the exact same injury falling down the stairs that what Defoe's character had, and you're like, are they the same guy? You know, there was a lot of it that like really felt Lynchian.
There's so much to unpack. There's so much to unpack in every single scene. The imagery, the editing is in this, I think, is some of the best editing I've ever seen. And this is Eggers. This is his second fucking film. Like, he directed The Witch, which is completely different.
The Witch was great.
Which was probably one of the best movies of the last 10 years. Probably top 15, if I'm, you know, put on the spot. But The Witch was just nail-biting, tense, white-knuckle the whole time. This was that, but more entry-level because it was so fucking funny. This wasn't above fart jokes. Like, this is...
Well, I mean, this won the International Federation of Film Critics prize at Cannes. Like... You know, this wasn't just a fart joke movie. Like, this was a movie that cleaned up.
God, I was taken aback by it. And I watched it somewhat recently, and I was just like, God, I have, like, this was my golden cow, because I was just like, I can't do this episode without seeing The Lighthouse, because I knew it was my kink, and it totally was. And if it came out in any other year, like I said, that our consensus number one didn't come out, this would have taken the cake. I mean, this is one of the best movies.
But I mean, look what A24 did in 2019. Midsummer, The Lighthouse, The Farewell, Native Son, The Last Black Man in San Francisco, The Souvenir,
Uncut
The
Gems.
Death of Dick Long, Kill Team. Yeah.
Incredible. They're the new... Remember when Focus was like the thing back then? Yeah. That is A24 today.
But it's like, as much as like the the people bitch about, oh, it's just all Marvel movies at the box office. Everything that A24 shits out is gold. They're a golden goose.
Yeah.
My God. So they're just killing it. So what can you do? You just support them at the box office. You don't red box their shit, and you give them the support they need.
All right, let's go to our number 2. So that was our number 3. So I had that. So I ranked Lighthouse at number 2. Jason ranked it at number 6. So now we both ranked this one fairly high, and this is a pretty consensus. So
I ranked this at number 3. John ranked this at number 4.
Yeah.
And this is a movie we just saw in the last couple of days. Was Uncut Gems.
I told you about how things were going to go. You like the way things are going now?
That's my family.
Get the kids out of the house.
You having a good time?
Yes. This is me. This is how I win. JJ, it's game night. You should be stretching out.
What is he, a coach? Nah, he's just a fucking crazy ass Jew.
Now, I saw every time I go on Facebook, it's like Uncut Gems. I feel like Adam Sandler's personally writing
whole review of Shoobity Doo.
Adam Sandler likes the menorah. It's just Adam Sandler in my face.
Yeah.
Why don't you watch it? But I didn't want to like Uncut Gems necessarily. I did not want to like Uncut Gems.
I liked this. Yeah, I hear you.
This movie, if you have not seen Uncut Gems, it's 2 hours and 15 minutes. It feels like 5 hours and 30 minutes. The thing about Uncut Gems is it's kind of, I describe this on Twitter as if they remade the movie Punch Drunk Love, but every character was Barry and everyone delivered their lines at the same time. So the thing about Uncut Gems is it's a very emotionally draining experience because everybody in every scene is yelling their lines on top of each other.
Yeah.
It's incredibly stressful to watch this movie. If you have a Xanax, take it because you're going to need it. But the thing about the movie is I watched this movie for 4 hours and 30 minutes, and then I looked on the scroller, and I'd actually only see it at 1 hour. So it felt like I was watching this for about 9 hours, but it was so worth it. I don't know how else to describe Uncut Gems. It's just so fucking annoying, but worth it. In the movie, Adam Sandler's character's ex-wife describes him as the most annoying person she's ever met.
Elsa from Frozen.
Right. He's so annoying, but so is everybody else. And everything he does is annoying. He always makes the wrong decision, and it just makes the movie. And it's just, I don't know. I texted John. I'm like, watching this movie is what I imagine being Jewish is like.
And being the resident Jew on the podcast, I would say that it's kind of like, I don't know.
Yeah. Low level of just ambient stress. This is a pretty stressful movie to watch, but it's just so worth it. Look how we ranked it.
Yeah.
I saw a lot of movies I liked this year. It was painful and uncomfortable to watch Uncut Gems. I ranked it 3rd. John ranked it 4th. We liked this movie. It was very good. I won't spoil it other than to say, look, it's an ordeal. Just get through it because 100% worth it.
Wear a tracksuit because you're in for the long haul because you need to be comfortable.
I'm wearing track bottoms right now, so
it's this film, if I were to compare it to a food, this is a Monte Cristo. It has so many layers of in every scene. It has so many people yelling over each other. It feels like a good Jewish Passover. But for 2.5 hours. It's so well written. It's so beautifully shot, and it's shot like shit for a reason.
I'm nowhere burned out watching this movie. That's how long it felt like. Oil ran out waiting for Adam Sandler to stop screaming.
Exactly. And I mean, talk about performances. Again, this just makes me hate Adam Sandler more because I know what he's actually capable of, and he just puts out. He
doesn't do it more. But look, Adam Sandler's not a good actor. Sometimes people will write like, oh, who can we get for like annoying Jew screaming for 3 hours? Clearly we can only get Adam Sandler. So like the fact that people will just write a movie for Adam Sandler makes me mad, because all he did was just be annoying on Saturday. This is like people like, imagine A24 is like, we need a Jimmy Fallon type for this. It's like, who's going to laugh and look at the camera the whole movie? But for whatever reason, every movie where Adam Sandler's been good in, they have written it to like everything people hate about him.
Right.
He's annoying. He screams for no reason. Like, he's just the worst. But when you write a movie for an Adam Sandler type, the movie works. Spanglish, Punch Drunk Love, Click, for Christ's sake. You write a movie for Adam Sandler, and just nobody else could have played this part, I don't think.
No.
Because he was just a loud, annoying, nebbish just character. And like, it really worked. We both ranked this movie in our top 5 for a reason.
And Julie Fox exploded on the scene. This is her debut film role. I mean, there was so many, everybody. And these were like no-name actors.
Yeah, you got to have sex with Adam Sandler and The Weeknd. She's like, I guess I could do that.
It was very Tarantino that way, right? Like it was almost like a retelling. It's like, Kevin Garnett and The Weeknd, these actual things didn't happen, but it was like this weird choose your own adventures with random celebrities. And they even made the Safdie brothers made Kevin Garnett look like a competent actor.
Well, I think Kevin Garnett, the fact that he's like, hey, acting ain't hard, I could do this, that's what made Kevin Garnett look like a competent actor. Like, you either have to, there are two premises, right? That like Kevin Garnett, oh, what a surprise, is a great actor. Or the other premise is, hey, acting's not that hard. And that's that's my take on it, but nobody agrees with that. Everyone's like, well, who knew Eminem was such an uncut gem? Fucking, it's easy. Anyone can do it.
Yeah.
Christ.
He's playing himself in his own biopic. Yeah.
Who knew Eminem could play Eminem so convincingly? Kill me. So, yeah. Kevin Garnett can act because, like, Kevin Garnett had to play Kevin Garnett. So, right. Congrats.
But but think about the writer's room, right? And I know the Safdie brothers were working on this for like 10 years, and they presented this first to Adam Sandler.
Writing is a movie is hard.
Yeah, and just like think about receiving this. It's just like Adam Sandler looking at this script 10 years ago and going, okay, he basically wrote me, and this is borderline offensive, and then you have like Kevin Garnett and The Weeknd, and this is like, what are you two young guys doing? Because they're only, and the Safdie brothers I think are in their early 30s now, so 10 years ago they were like fresh out of film school. So it's just like the amount of gumption and balls that these two guys had to write this batshit crazy script and to have it go together with these unknown actors. That's why Uncut Gems is like seriously one of the best films.
It was a gem.
Yeah.
How else do you describe this movie? And like the Safdie brothers, like, they directed a lot of shorts and like they put themselves into movies sometime. Benny Safdie has as many acting credits as he does directorial credits.
Yeah, they did High Life, which you liked quite a bit.
Oh, I loved High Life. And that's another Pattinson movie.
Yep.
The guy picks out roles well,
and these filmmakers show a competency beyond their years because they select actors perfectly. I mean, this was like casting Adam Sandler in this film was like casting Jim Carrey in Ace Ventura.
You couldn't do this movie with anybody else. No. That's the thing. It's not that Adam Sandler's a good actor. It's like this role was only Adam Sandler could do it, and he did it. And thankfully he did it, because what a movie.
Yeah. All right. Drum roll for our number 1. I think this should come at no surprise. If you've
been waiting for this movie the whole time, if you were like, what are they going to, okay. Yeah. It's number 1.
It
was
Joker.
Both of our number 1s. Joker. Yeah. Star Wars Episode 9.
3. Yeah. No. The Phantom Menace balls. Now, this is, if you watched our last episode, this was a spoiler, because I think even Jason said it during our Bong Joon-ho episode. He's just like, Parasite's the best film.
My number 1 movie of the year. And you know what? I kind of thought perhaps it would be unseated by Knives Out, but it wasn't for me, and it certainly wasn't for John.
No.
Our number one with a bullet, the only one we both agreed on. We both had this in the same spot. Number one, Bong Joon-ho's Parasite.
아 잠깐. 제시카 외동딸 일리노이 시카고 과선배는 김치모 그는 이사촌.
부자인데 착하다니까.
진짜 니가 착한 거지. I'm deadly serious.
근데 지금 진짜로 이상한 게 뭔 것 같아.
As close to perfect as you could get this year.
Yeah.
But this film, again, this was the year of comedy slash thriller slash whatever. This had everything. This was the smorgasbord of entertainment, and I didn't even have to speak the language, and this overtook everything else that I saw this year.
I mean, nominated for 3 Golden Globes,
Palme d'Or winner.
Well, yeah, won the AFI Special Award too. Yeah, this is just cleaned up.
Yeah,
it's not super controversial to have this as your best movie of the year. I wasn't like signaling anything by having this as my number one.
Sure.
John and I didn't talk about this beforehand. This just ended up both of our number ones, just on the basis of. When we were doing our Bong Joon-ho episode and we watched this, he sent me a message saying, I saw Parasite and it melted my brain. And I kind of, I kind of like that characterization of the movie because it does that Asian cinema thing where you feel like you're watching a different movie for the first half.
Yeah.
And the movie that it is, the first half, unlike something like Audition, where you're like, this movie's boring for an hour and 45 minutes. You're like, oh, it's a good movie finally.
That's what sets it apart.
This was a good movie for like an hour and a half. And then it was like, just kidding. This is actually a different movie for the last 45 minutes.
And now it's great.
And the movie it turned to was good too. It was two crazy movies in one, and I love when Asian cinema does that. When they do that, you're actually watching something completely different.
Ugh.
And the movie it flipped to, so good too. So I just really love this movie on the basis of everything it did, how it executed. It melted John's brain, and I felt like it melted mine. If you haven't seen it, I don't even want to say anything about it.
We still won't talk about this. Yeah,
because I don't want to spoil it. I want you to go see it. If you haven't seen it, go find it, because honestly, this movie was just the best movie that was made in 2019. I don't know what else to say. It was perfect.
Yeah, if you haven't seen Once Upon a Time by now, it's the Manson thing. Go fuck yourself. But Parasite is. Look, it's you have to seek it out, right? It's a tough one, and I said this in the Bong Joon-ho episode. This transcends normal, like a normal movie-going experience, because I think that this is going to be kind of the Trojan horse to kind of broaden that. Just like this feels like what Yorgos Lanthimos does, right? Like we're getting these international films that Western moviegoers will go and consume, and this is it's so smart and it's so decadent, but it's so consumable. Like you don't even have to speak the language, and you're not lost at all, and you're not bored at all. It is funny. It is heartfelt. It is terrifying.
But the themes of classism resonate in this current era more than they would have ever.
Right.
Because there was a lot of classism embedded, or not classism, but classist clashes.
Right. Embedded
in a lot of the movies that came out this year. But I think Parasite did the best job of this is literal classism, where a family is buried 3/4 underground where they can kind of see daylight. They're not completely a sub-level. They can see daylight into their apartment, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So like, you know, there's that ambition, that climb. At the end of the movie, I'm not going to spoil anything, but the main character is like, I need to make enough money to, like, I've been grifting my whole life, but now I need to go legit just so I have enough money to buy this house.
Yeah.
You know, and I thought that was just sort of thing, like, as much as he's like, I aspire to be this next socioeconomic class, there was a need at the end. It was like, I can't even do what I've been doing my whole life. I need to completely change my whole approach because I really need a next level and just buy this house. And I really thought the symbolism with the rock,
yes.
you know, that really symbolized classism, and someone was literally beat over the head with it. Just fantastic.
It was an upstairs downstairs movie in the purest form, in actual and social. Like it just hit all the notes, and it did it in such a nuanced and finessed way. It's goddamn perfect. Like 9.8% out of 10. Like I don't like any flaw that I would say about it would be a nitpick. And it, you know, like I said, 2019 was a very top heavy, like the middle.
I mean, Peanut Butter Falcon made both of our lists, and that movie didn't even have a goddamn ending to it. So, like, are we gonna really
the Snake Roberts? Yeah,
yeah, are we gonna nitpick Parasite for God's sake? Right. Like, there wasn't. I mean, look, there was a ton of good stuff that came out this year, but not enough, you know, that to knock like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood out of our top 10. So we know.
And I already see I can already see the comments now. I could already feel the visceral attacking. I can't wait for people
to argue with us. I cannot wait.
Well, all the end, like, where's Endgame? Where is Joker? It's just like, you know what? It's all I watched after I kind of like baked in my picks. I watched a couple of other like bigger YouTubers or whatever, like their top 10. And it's just like, I don't know. Like, it's just, I don't care if it's popular or not. These are my opinions. These are Jason's opinions. And these are the type of films that obviously he and I like, you know, because for the most part, yes, there was some dissent kind of in the bottom and in the middle a little bit. But at the top, it's just like, these are just really well-made films that kind of everyone should go see.
I mean, like, all of our top 10, I think, is like super watchable. But like, man, if you haven't seen Parasite, just go.
Yeah.
I talked to my mom. I was like, I thought Parasite was my best movie of the year. She's like, I think I saw that. That's about like parasites, right?
Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Yeah, it's no, it's not about literal parasites, but it is kind of about literal parasites. Yeah, okay, yeah. You get that. So it was really neat that our number one was something we both agreed on, and it was something that we saw 3 months ago, and then we have seen every movie on the list since, basically.
Yeah.
You know,
they all came out in December. Yeah.
I thought something might unseat Parasite, but I really sat down and was honest with myself.
Yeah.
And Knives Out could not unseat Parasite. So as much as I wanted Knives Out to be my number one, because it was just such a great movie, and you know, it's about time Rian Johnson shook off that failure of making $500 million.
Poor guy.
Right? Oh, I'm sorry. Did I ruin Star Wars with my $500 million movie?
Yeah. And the same thing with Lighthouse. Like I said, Lighthouse was, I think, you know, I liked it a little bit more than Jason, but I absolutely loved that.
It's in my top 6. I mean, what do you want from me?
But it was a strong contender, but it still could not. I couldn't justify anything on here. Even Uncut Gems pushing out Parasite from number one. It's just one of those tentpole movies that's just going to be kind of remembered, and I hope that, you know, but I can't wait to see the next Bong Joon-ho film, or even Yorgos Lanthimos. I mean, these kind of foreign directors coming from countries that aren't known for their cinematic pedigree are just exploding on the scene, and it's just so much fun to be a film fan in 2019 going to 2020.
Now, there were a couple of movies that I thought were slightly underrated this year, and I think it's worth spending this time, now that we have your undivided attention,
sure,
to talk about. I think it is absolutely insane that Steven Soderbergh, first of all, my favorite director, made a movie for Netflix, which is where The Irishman, a movie neither one of us had in our top 10, came out. And it was about the Panama Papers. He basically made The Big Short for Panama Papers on Netflix, where you already have Netflix, and you could have watched it. No one gave a hot shit about The Laundromat. And I thought that was real fantastic. Meryl Streep was real good in it, you know? For whatever reason, you know, critics just didn't really like the movie that much. It didn't really resonate with audiences. It didn't really get that much attention, but like, who doesn't want to talk about the Panama Papers? Because that was such a crazy revelation about like, nope, the richest people on the planet are grifting you at such a level that you had no idea, you know, and you have a Meryl Streep, Steven Soderbergh movie come out about the whole thing and no one really cared. I thought The Laundromat should have done a little bit better than it did. Critics really just kind of dumped on it. Audiences really didn't care. I thought it should have done better. So that was one of my personal underrated movies of 2019. I thought, and The Laundromat's still streamable on Netflix. I suggest you give it a shot because, you know, we both love Soderbergh. We did a Soderbergh episode of this podcast. If you go back, and the guy's making movies on iPhones. He didn't make Laundromat on iPhone, but he made High Flying Bird on the iPhone. That's another underrated movie 2019 on a personal level. I really thought that should have done a little bit better.
If I were to pick one, I would say probably the Blank Report or the Torture Report with Adam Driver and Annette Bening, kind of talking about the whole, you know, torturing Iraqi prisoners. During that time, it was kind of like a biopic type deal. That was good, but again, it was smartly written, but it didn't get there. But I feel like I think that one's streaming on that one's an Amazon Prime original. Definitely worth an eyeball or two. But it's, you know, it wasn't like a honorable mention, but definitely underrated. But I mean, audience, what do you think? Or were we totally off base? Or are we just completely dumb because we didn't put Joker at number 1 like everyone else did? Let us know in the comments.
I mean, I also thought, if we're talking about originals, the directed Netflix movie Dolomite Is My Name, starting the Eddie Murphy reconnaissance. I thought Dolomite Is My. If you're a fan of historical comedy, you know, that was really a good movie. Dolomite Is My Name.
Hustle and Flow, that directed Hustle and Flow. Yeah, it was good.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't quite make my top 10, but I think if you're looking for something enjoyable to watch, that's probably something real good. And also there were some good documentaries that came out this year. The first one is the Firefest documentary that everyone talked about for like 2 seconds because of the guy that was like, oh, I'll blow a dude for some water. Everyone's like, that's friend goals, you know? I thought that was really cool. The whole Fyre Fest thing was just a rich wank for rich dicks. And I thought the fact that it blew up was hilarious. But when you really got down to it, like, real people were affected on a personal level. And like, as much as you can laugh at the guy that tried to make Fyre Fest happen and didn't, as much as you can laugh at that dude, real people were affected. Also, there was a documentary called Honeyland that was like 99% on Rotten Tomatoes, and like, documentaries just don't do really well, and it's really hard to watch them. But Honeyland was about beekeeping, and this is about women in Macedonia trying to cultivate bees, which, like, okay, that's crazy. On top of this, like, bee colonies are getting wiped out by Monsanto. Like, they're the most important pollinators on the planet. It just, I couldn't believe how compelling and interesting I found Honeyland, the documentary. So like, there were really good documentaries that came out in 2019 also. And like, if that's your thing, for whatever reason, I'll watch a documentary and for like 2 days after, I'm like, that's my shit. I want to go to Japan and get sushi from Jiro. I don't know why. It just like fires me up so much, but Like, a good documentary will make you give a shit about something that is so boring as a concept. You wouldn't read a book about it, but you'll watch a 2-hour movie and you're like, yeah, I think Macedonian beekeeping for women is my life's passion. So definitely Honeyland, and Dolomite is my name, for realism. And the Firefest documentary too. I think they're all really fantastic movies that didn't quite crack our top 10.
Hey, Jason, this another year in the books for Film Hooligans, formerly known as Director's Cut. This was a ton of fun. Look forward to more filmmaker reviews coming up very soon. So look forward to the next one in January. 2020 it should be a big year for film. Looking forward to everything coming out. But if you want to talk movies and everything with me on Twitter, you could do so at OrzovDone. Jason, where can everyone find you?
I am at Jason E. Alt on the Twitter, and I have a pinned post at the top of my page where it talks about all the different things I'm involved in. They aren't all movie related. They're mostly Magic the Gathering related, but if you want to hit me up, that's a thing that's super possible.
Excellent. Or just follow the actual show's Twitter at film_hooligans. So thank you so much for making 2019 our strongest year yet as a show and as a podcast. If you do want to listen to this in audio form only, you could do so on iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, all those things. But cheers, and we'll see you in the new year.